this is Wil, your werewolf, and this is Werewolf the podcast. It's getting there. We're nearly at the end. We're one from the end. It's episode 99, and let's not prematurely end this. That can be so disappointing at times, can't it? We've all been there, haven't we? It's going so well, and oh no, it's all over. Hopefully you've listened to the previous 4 episodes, at least for this series, to make it make sense. If I can make this life make sense, that is. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me sometimes, and if that is the case, where is the sense in that? If you wish to follow the podcast on social media, then you can. There are links down in the description, and it's nice to talk to those with similar thought patterns as myself and Fen. I've got Twitter and Instagram, and the Facebook group is great. And you can also support the show if you want by giving me money. That would be lovely. Other than that, let us take a step forward in this journey. Episode 99 of the podcast. Woohoo! Sally, Azza, Fen, and I had arrived in Aberystwyth town. Things had happened on the journey there, murders and shit. The stuff we all like to, keep rolling. We were on our trip there to find a document from the 1200s that we hoped would show us how to kill a werewolf's soul. Now, if that sounded confusing, it might mean that you need to do some listening to other episodes. Apparently there are 98 of them, so there is much information on wolf souls and things. If you want to continue with this episode right now, that's up to you. Either way, I appreciate you wasting your time listening to the nonsense I spout. We're at the Welsh National Library. It's a squat, bulky building and an imposing landmark over the town on Penglais Hill. The library is a very handsome piece of architecture with a great and complex history of its own. It was designed by Sidney Greenslade in 1908 and finally completed as a package with all the books in and everything on St. David's Day in 1916. This place has internal cathedral proportions and is a place of worship. I was in heaven. Sally was not. With incredulity, I watched her walk towards the entrance towards the building with not a look around. She didn't care. She just had her eyes stuck to her fucking mobile phone, watching Instagram or Toki Tyke or whatever it is you kids are into these days. How could she not see all this? Just this. Although standing behind her, she did have a certain confident swagger in her white jodhpurs, black boots and white woolen sweater. Too much confidence for my liking, to be honest, but I followed her as she stormed forward towards the entrance, followed by her giant white wolf soul, Azza. They were on a mission, which I now remembered I was on as well. But I just had to do it. I couldn't not enjoy all this. I had to stop, however briefly, to look at the building, to drink in its aesthetic stonework and design. This was a beautiful construction, was one of the last of its type to be built in the changing world of its time. Then, turning 180, I could look over the town and see. The library sits where it oversees Aberystwyth, the coast, and it's gorgeous. Fen and I were...
What are you doing?
Was shouted at me. I turned to see Sally now, looking at me, tapping her foot, and staring, while of course, chewing. She never stopped chewing. I turned back to the view and spread my arms wide, turning a circle on the spot. Just look at this. It is incredibly beautiful, I told her. Now she was looking around, left and right, up and down, all over.
What?
She asked, confused.
What is?
Fen and I were shocked. What do you mean, what? Fen asked her.
I didn't get it. What's so bonny?
All this, I said, turning a circle and opening my arms to this marvellous world. I looked back at her. She looked round and tutted.
For fuck's sake, how old are you, Grandpa? It's just the bloody outside.
Honestly, she scolded me like a child as though that was enough to dismiss all of this. And with no more words, she continued her journey to the front entrance of the building. Fen and I were still rooted to the spot and were stunned. What did she not see? It's not too bloody late to kill her, Will, Fen sent into my mind.
I heard that.
Came a telepathic reply from Sally.
Come on, for fuck's sake, Will.
Both Fen and I grumbled as we followed. As we went into the reception area, we went to the information, where we met a lovely young man who was bored at the desk, but remembered his customer relations training and pretended to be interested in the two people before him. Well, that's not wholly true. As Sally walked towards the desk, his interest was real, but I could tell that his mind and his attention on her was not related to finding her any old, sort of dusty manuscripts or anything.
Hello,
She stared at his name badge, a bit perplexed. She turned to me at this point, and I could have helped her out. Maybe I should have helped her out, but I wasn't going to, because it would be funny to see what she made of the Welsh name on his badge.
Help me, you fucker.
Swam into my mind.
What the fuck does S-E-A-N spell in bloody Welsh?
I was thinking about helping, and then I thought, nah. She turned back to the desk.
Hi, Scene.
She said, looking at the man in a questioning manner. I laughed and stepped in to help in as much of a condescending manner as I possibly could. I'm sorry about that, Sean. I leaned into him. Sally, this is Sean, I said, introducing him to Sally in a very pitying manner. I talked slowly and deliberately at her, as though explaining something to someone hard of thinking. Sean did not seem to mind. Oh, that's fine, miss. It's not spelt the way you spell it in England. How can I be of service today? He said with a hopeful glint in his eyes.
Sean, are you bloody well telling me that I sound English to you? Fuck's sake, man, I'm obviously Scottish. He's the English one.
She said, pointing to me. They both then looked at me as though I'd shat myself in front of them. Fine, whatever.
We're here from the Aberdeen University Divinity Department
Her smile became angelic.
to do some research on a medieval document that you have here. I am a PhD student doing my doctorate in medieval supernatural literature. And this is my tutor, Dr. Richard Head. Yeah. He likes to be known as Dick. Don't you, Dick?
She asked me in a rhetorical manner as she made eye contact with me and winked so the boy couldn't see her. Little bitch. I didn't care though. I reached forward and shook the boy's hand. Yes, I'm Dr. Dickhead, I said before realising what I'd really said. The boy didn't even blanch. He made no obvious signs that he found anything funny in that introduction, but Sally went into the largest fit of coughing behind me I'd ever seen anyone have in history. I patted her on the back, offering her help with her convulsing cough as I leaned forward to Sean and whispered, I'm so sorry about that, Sean. It's one of the symptoms of pulmonary syphilis. I smiled. Please don't worry, it's okay, you can't catch it unless you fuck her in the ass without condoms, I mouthed. The boy's jaw just opened and he moved a pace or two back from the desk as Sally regained control of herself and continued speaking. I think that was 1-0.
I arranged this all on the phone of last Wednesday. I was in touch with Mrs. Me Fanny Hitch.
Ah, my fanwy.
What the fuck are you laughing at?
Flew into my head. I was smirking. What? My fanny itches too, I sent back telepathically. My fanwy, I said to Sean as he typed. A great old Welsh name, my fanwy. I love my fanwy. You should change your name to that, dear, I told Sally. My fanwy soon arrived at the desk. The document we wanted was not in the general collection and could only be seen on request. My fanwy, Sorry, that name cannot be repeated enough for it not to be funny. Was going to show us where it was. I was very excited about the document as we went through the building to where we needed to go. Fen was talking and Sally was pretending to pay attention as she walked. Fen and I were not. We were in absolute heaven. This was as close to a church as I ever got. I have a love for knowledge, especially ancient knowledge. I think we've lost a lot of what is known or what was known. I also love just wood pulped printing, and the smells in this place, especially for a werewolf, were enough to cause me to have a bibliophile's boner. Eventually we got to the little room which housed the book. We walked into the small, stuffy area, and on the desk before us was the leather-bound book with so many bookmarks. It was huge and thick, and being in this room took me back to the Harry Potter films. It really felt like we would be reading a book of magic from the film. This was better though. This was a book of magic from the past. It might even be an actual, real book of magic. Who knew? The book itself was very foxed, as they say about the standard of its keeping, meaning it was a bit roughed up. In fact, it was worse than simply foxed. It looked like it had been wolfed or bored or even bared in its time. The book was opened and displayed its goods. The pages were vellum and smelt richly of leather. It was an amazing thing. The writing was in Latin and beyond me, but Sally had cunningly been young, so she had a translation program on her phone. Google Translate or something was in full function. Mafan left us after telling us to be careful with the document in about 20 different ways. She really was like a mother hen caring for an egg of hers. It took all my effort not just to knock the fucking thing on the floor for a laugh, but I didn't. The author of the book, Bethan Beda, had been a high-born Welsh lass who was eventually richly tortured for her witchcraft. She was one of those women who helped heal the local community, look after its poor and its frail. You know how it is, and then the church stepped in because she was stopping God's work. She'd been tested for witchcraft by a great witch master general, whatever one of those is. Sounds like a cool title though, doesn't it? Bethan was said to be able to control animals through demonic methods. Well, that's what was decided by the Witchmaster General. She went through a trial to see if she was a witch. That had been to give her to the local lord's hungry hunting hounds. If she was a witch, if she could control the dogs and stop them from eating her. If the dogs ripped her to pieces and killed her, then she was innocent. So a no-win situation for poor Bethan. Sadly, she had her throat torn out within the first few seconds of meeting the dogs, so I suppose under the eye of the gods, or God, she was innocent. She was dead, but she was innocent. God is great, huh? Or should we say, some of the humans that follow him are cunts? If he exists and I get to meet him, her, them, whatever, I have a huge list of questions for them. We were looking for one spell in particular. This spell had been made to fight against a cannibalistic group of humans from Carmarthenshire, from the village of Blath, the Wolf Village. The description of the cannibals was basically that they were werewolves, such as the tribe in Russia were. The local ecclesiarchs had said that these people could turn into the beast at will and would attack people and as wolfmen and wolves, so this spell had been used to kill them off. To kill off this tribe. So it may be of use in killing off some unwanted werewolf souls. If you've listened to the last episode, you should know all about this. I hope you have. The spell was called Lupus Anima Pulveri, Wolf Soul Dust. How the tribe had found it in Russia, well, to be honest, how they found it didn't bother me in the slightest, but it may be able to kill off the wolf soul, so we had to give it a try. Oh, and there was also the benefit of me getting a Ferrari F40 in it, if we were successful. I turned the pages because I wanted to. Sally wasn't really asked and sat bored on her phone as usual, lounging in a chair while I looked. Her nose was stuck to her fucking phone again, and she was giggling now, again at dogs dressed up as other things. Small dogs dressed as celebrities seemed to be hilarious today. It is amazing what different people find funny or interesting. I mean, how could she not be moved by this book before her? I just don't get the youth of today. I leafed through the book, loving the touch of the skin pages on my fingers. I must admit, I was a bit gutted that I couldn't wear my white cotton gloves to do this. I'd even brought my own, thinking this would make me look really professional. But, oh yes, I get to repeat it. Mfanwi had said that the oils from our skin were much better for the book than the friction that the cotton or latex gloves caused. I suppose I should not have been upset though, as it allowed me to touch the pages of this incredible thing. I eventually got to the page titled Lupus Anima Pulveri in a beautiful handwritten script, and I turned to Sally. Found it! What are we going to do with it? Are we photographing it? I mean, I suppose we could steal the book, but we would probably have to kill a whole lot of people if we did that. It would involve the police and shit and media and things. Hey, you know me, I'm up for it. I was excited in the thought of running through the building, killing and murdering and doing all those wonderful things. She looked at me as though I was an idiot. I'd gotten used to this look, so it didn't even faze me anymore. She took a cutthroat razor from her pocket and passed it to me. I looked at the thing, not getting the point of it. Did she want me to, kill Mfanwi, to slice up Mfanwi? I don't like slicing up Mfanwis. It wouldn't be the right thing to do. And then Azza stepped into my mind.
No, Will. Simply slice out the relevant page. I don't think the librarian will initially miss the one page out of all of them, do you? Just fold it up and put it in your bloody pocket.
This was wrong. They wanted me to cut this book. They wanted me to desecrate this beautiful piece of historical prose. They wanted me to hurt this look into the past that we could now see and understand, to damage this fathomless work, this cursive masterpiece written on the skin of calves, this book that has somehow survived the centuries of oppression of witches and paganism. It had not been burnt or shredded. It had somehow been looked after and brought into the now in one piece. How on earth could they expect me to do this? And Sally was suddenly by my side. She pressed down on the parchment with her left hand and ripped the page from the binding with her right. It was done. The pain shot into my heart and head. But it was done. She held my eyes with hers, and with an incredulous look, she folded the sheet carefully and tucked it up in her jumper to be concealed in her bra. I was frozen to the spot in horror, and then she leaned forward and kissed me on the nose and turned away, returning to her masticating. I was traumatized and had to get my breath back under control.
There we go. Wasn't so bad, was it?
She said as she turned to leave. Fen and I were aghast. She had... Did she realise that she had... Somehow dumbfounded, I followed her out of the room. Outside, Mfanwi was working on an old book. I could smell binder's glue and love being used to help these little fonts of knowledge. She turned at our entrance and huge eyes shone from by magnifying headset that she wore. She lifted the eyewear from her face and smiled.
Did you get what you needed? I was going to come in and offer tea and shortbread. The cafe here does a nice shortbread. I think that's it, to be honest. I've all I need, and I've satisfied Dick here.
Sally said. The woman looked confused at this, and then started to rise from her chair.
Oh no, dinna bother yourself. We can find our way out. There's no need to get up. It looks like you have plenty to fill your hands up there, to be honest.
Sally said, feigning an interest in the book she was working on. Mfanwi turned and started to talk about the book with a level of excitement, but Sally had already moved to the door and left, bitch, leaving me there in a moment of awkward silence as the librarian's monologue faltered and stopped. Eventually I gave a little wave and turned and left as well. Sally was waiting for me in the corridor, and I motioned her to take the lead down that corridor. I wasn't ready to chat with her at this point. I needed time to think. But that time had to be just me and Fen's time. Things were getting wrong. We got back to the car, and I threw the ticket from under the wiper onto the tarmac before getting into the driver's side. I smiled at the traffic warden who watched me do it. He broke eye contact first and looked away. I don't blame him. At that moment, I was raging. I started to drive. We didn't talk for some time in the car, and, well, it just seemed fucking ages before we were comfy enough to do it. It was the first time I'd felt uncomfortable with Sally's presence. It took me a while to settle things in my mind, and yeah, that night we stayed in a little village outside Aberystwyth called Borth. The village is right on the coast, and we ran in our wolf forms onto the beach and into the estuary that night. Not to hunt, but just to run and exercise. As we ran, we woke the roosting waders, and they made admonishing sounds at our passing. But we didn't care. We were having fun. So much fun. Could I go as far as we frolicked? Yes, we frolicked on the beach, play fighting with one another, chasing each other from place to place in wolf form of Tig. We rolled around and mouthed, and in a climax I mounted her in a combined moment of exciting, and after only moments we were knotted, both satisfied beneath the full moon. When back in the shared room, this was at her behest, we climbed into the bed together. She snuggled up to my left-hand side, and I felt her warm body against mine. I really wanted it. Not in the rippy-teary manner either, in the, wanting it way that happens. No words were said. She turned and kissed me, and the following 2 hours were loving, sordid, caring, and I have to say at times debauched. I'm really not going to go into detail. Use your imagination. No, it was better than that. It happened. We were one. The following day, we drove the whole way back home to Manchester. A snoozy, comfortable silence filled the car now. We were relaxed with each other again. I drove, and Sally worked on the page to determine if it was helpful. At about halfway home, she hummed.
I've been looking at this for over an hour now, Will, and it can't be this easy. According to this, you just have to crush the canine teeth of the werewolf you want to destroy. It doesn't say if you can take them from the human or if you have to take them from the actual werewolf. That might be an issue, but it can't be that simple, right?
She looked at me as if I knew the answer. I shook my head. I've no idea, Sally. It seems a little too easy. You need to give it a go, I suppose. She nodded and looked at the page once more, then her phone, then the page.
There's not even any magic words or anything?
She said, a note of disappointment in her voice. I shrugged. Eventually she folded the page and slipped it between her thighs, leaning back in the chair and adjusting it for comfort before drifting off into sleep. Now I knew she was asleep. I could let my mind wander. I knew she wouldn't be able to hear me. I had a lot to think about. Thanks for listening. That was episode 99. Please check out things in the description. And episode 100 will be the final episode in this series. And I'm hoping it's going to be cool. Or good. Or not shit. Or something. Anyway, love you all. Please share this with friends if you have any. And God bless. Bye.
Life's a